So we're live now. Now we're live. Awesome. Links. Okay, let's see. Here it is. I got it now. Okay, so while y'all are watching us live, whether you are or not, or if you're coming back to us in a moment, we are learning the ins and outs of live broadcasting. So here it is. I'm putting it in the Facebook party group.
It is working. There's about a 10-second delay, but okay. You're up.
There might be some feedback, so I apologize for that. Oh, we got an echo. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask you guys to mute yourself until you speak. While we wait on Danielle, mute. How are we doing now? Perfect. Okay. So while we're waiting on Danielle, I'm going to reintroduce everybody. We have Jessica Rainey. We have Jay Mazer. We have AJ Brown. Danielle will be joining us shortly. And of course, myself, Lisa Vasquez. And we are going to talk about all things writing today. No real set subject. We're just going to kind of do a roundtable. Might talk some shit a little bit. And Jessica and Jay, if you want to join us, we've got our fingers ready. So grab a pen. Jot it down. Okay. Also with me, I have not eaten chocolate or candy in a really long time. So I got these that I had for our Scary Dads convention last weekend. And I'm curious to know if anybody's eaten enough of these that their poop glows in the dark. I'm not sure. We're going to maybe take a little experiment on that. But you can't come with and watch. We are waiting on Danielle, so if you guys are live, make sure that if you have questions, you can go ahead and post them in the Stitch Smile Publications release party, and we'll try to get to as many of them as we can. There is a delay on some of them, so I apologize in advance. So first, what I'm going to do is, for those of you that are here, I think we're still waiting on Danielle. So those of you who are here, Jay, would you introduce yourself, give us a little biography about you, and tell us what you write and why you write it.
Well, I write historical romance, very sensitive, slow mood. No, I write the hard stuff. I write creature horror. And why do I write it? Because I love it. I mean, I grew up, Dad had me sit down and watch The Exorcist, Poltergeist, Kronos, and The Omen. The Omen. Nice. I think when I was about 8 years old, much to my mother's dismay when she came home from her work trip. But ever since then, I mean, I've been reading Stephen King and Dean Koontz, and moving on to Robert McCammon and H.P. Lovecraft and Ray Bradbury, all the bigs. So I've always loved it. So naturally, that's what I write. And I have tried to write other things. I tried to write a romance, and somebody lost their head. So I mean, it doesn't. It never ends up well. But yeah, horror is in my blood. That's what I do.
I think that's part of the thing for most horror writers that I've talked to. Some of them are talented enough to go into other genres. But for me, whenever I try to write something lighthearted, I don't feel like it's realistic to me.
Yeah.
Something always dark, always happens. And Danielle and I were talking about this earlier. Is like, and she said, in life there is darkness, and that's true. I don't think we trust anybody whose life is just happy-go-lucky all the time. Like, it's just not natural.
Well, nobody's life is happy-go-lucky all the time, right? So I think there's even the brightest people that seem to have everything perfect. There's always something there. There's always something hidden that's a little bit dark. And I think as horror writers and horror creators, we expose that, and we make people uncomfortable with what we write because it's all there. We all have it. It's just some of us embrace it and enjoy it.
Yeah, and a lot of times we put it into the closet and then, or they put it into the closet and they bury it. It's kind of like the dirty secret. And they make the front of airs, they make airs about, how life is just so perfect, and everything that they do, they can cope so well with. But the reality is that it catches up with us, I think. And what I love about horror is, like you said, we confront that and we just drag them out of the closet kicking and screaming. There's no hiding from us. We pull it out from under the bed, we pull it out from the closet, and we really just get into it. So let me move on to Jessica, and same thing for you. Tell me a little bit about yourself, what you write and why you write it.
Well, I'm Jessica Rainey, and I write not quite as hard horror, but I try sometimes. So my stuff is more weird horror than super scary, but I've written some nasty stuff, I think, maybe. I write it because I just like stories. I like to tell weird stories. I like a twist. I like to be scared, but I also sometimes I like to say something, and sometimes I don't like to say something. I'm not really interested in changing the world's view of anything. I just want to tell a good story, and I appreciate that out of other people too.
And one of the things that I noticed about you is that you have a very unique way of thinking about things. Like, I thought I had like this, very oddball sense of humor or way of looking at things. But every time I ask a question when we're in the panels, you come up with something just out of the box. And I'm like, man, I think it's almost like that's obvious to me, but at the same time, it's not. I've never heard it actually expressed. So when you say that you like to write weird, like, give me an example of something that, you write that's weird.
Well, I mean, I really started out in short stories. So I like the what if question, like, what if your mouthwash made you tell the truth? Or what if
we'd all be in a world of shit.
Your mouthwash made everybody believe everything that you said? So I'll write a story. I haven't actually written that one yet. Don't copyright Jessica. Don't steal it. But I mean, that's the kind of thing that I'm interested in. I'm interested in what would happen if you were stuck in a time loop and you had to murder the person that you cared the most about to stay in that day forever. And I'm interested in weird Westerns and, science fiction and whatever. I'm a big fan of The Twilight Zone and Black Mirror. So a lot of the times, the short stories I write kind of come about by those questions, like, what if? Right. That's what I start with, what if?
You start with what if, and then you take what normal people sort of lean towards. Like, the crowd will migrate towards this, and then you throw in this sort of monkey wrench in there, and you're like, no, but what if you can't use that option? And the options that you normally give are like, worser. It's like you throw something in there where the choices aren't comfortable choices, and they're not natural choices that we have to make. And I really appreciate that about your stories, that there is no safe choice in the matter.
Well, it's about to get horrific up in here because I've got a dog, and now my cat thinks he wants to come hang out to me.
So what if?
Get out. What if I murder a cat on YouTube? No, I'm just kidding. I won't.
Okay, so we'll let you go mute for a second, and I will ask Jeff to introduce himself and to tell me what you write and why you write it.
I'm AJ Brown. That's what most of you know me as far as in the writing. I write mostly psychological horror. I like the dark stuff. And I write it just because I enjoy it. I think there's horror in everything that you do. Look at every situation out there. Look at any television show. Read any book. Almost everything is based on something horrific happening to somebody. We call it what it is. Horror.
Right.
Everybody else just sugarcoats it. It's like science fiction, there's something horrific going on. Romance, there's something horrific going on. Lit fiction, there's something horrific going on. I mean, have you ever read of Mice and Men?
Yeah.
Well, it's horrific. We just, as horror writers, we just tell the truth. Right. Whereas everybody else wants to hide behind all these other subgenre names.
And I think that that's come about recently where in order to market horror, they've broken it up to, supernatural. So it's not as taboo when they put it into the store, and people will migrate to it rather than to stay away from it. And unfortunately, that's sort of segregated our community in a little bit, in my opinion, because now, it's especially for the new people coming into writing, I think it's really sort of led them astray into, it's, I guess, like segregation, period. If you try to take two communities and pull them apart, then it's, you start getting into the elitist attitude and that, oh, we don't talk to them because they write that kind of horror. But, and it's like you said, everything has that darkness to it, and horror, Game of Thrones to me is horror because there's some really bad shit happening in Game of Thrones where even I will cringe a little and go, damn, but like you said, there's romance, something bad happens, and we're faced with these choices, like Jessica was saying, where it's like, we just remove the comfortable ones. And you know what? Life is like that. I mean, if you have no job, right? You have no job. Are you going to rob a bank, or are you going to take a job that's beneath you to survive? And I think that to some people is horror. That's some of their worst fears, right?
Absolutely. And because horror, the best horror is the one that's realistic.
Right.
The ones that feel. One of the things that I like to do is I like to screw with my characters. And you've read enough of my work to know that I will tear down one of my characters,
right,
just to bring about some feelings in somebody. And that type of horror, that's real life. I think that's what a lot of people don't like actually about horror, is because there are real life elements in it. Look at anything that we've written. I mean, just what Jessica was just saying, there's a lot of weird in the world. And these what if questions are what we ask, and we're willing to face them. Right. Some of us are a little more hardcore, some of us are a little softer, but at the end of the day, we're willing to face what everybody else is not willing to face. And that kind of brings me to one other point. I think if everybody wrote down their horrible thoughts, we'd have a lot less serial killers out there.
That's true.
And a lot less people shooting up schools, because they're getting it all out.
Right. Okay, I'm going to switch over to Pete. So Pete, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us what you write and why you write it.
My name is Pete Holnar. I write largely abnormal psychology, horror, grounded in psychosis. I think what fascinates me about it is the fact that if you look at the numbers, more people suffer from some kind of psychosis than don't in today's day. I think it has a lot to do with traumatic events that have happened in the last couple of decades, flashbulb events that people can't get rid of, and just the fact that the world has become a lot crueler in many respects. I think we as horror writers, we document that,
right? Because
it's whitewashed. It's kind of tucked under the rug by certain social media outlets that only show the happier side of things, the happy photographs, the happy wife, happy husband, happy children. But that's not real. Right. That exists. That's a fabricated universe. That's a fabricated face that people want to put outward. I like to show the other side of that social media. The person that is dealing with real life horror, real life strife. I also like to document how they overcome it.
Right.
Even absolutely horrific, and you can't imagine how they're going to survive and get past it. Because I want to, I guess, offer a glimmer of hope to the reader that no matter how horrific things are, you ask them, even if it is that monster in the closet or it's that monster in the next room that has a human face.
Right.
You can deal with it and you can get past it. I think as horror writers, we all are molded by the experiences that we have as children, and we hit a crossroads where we can go one way and be an accountant, or we can go the other way and explore our demons,
right,
and try to some way. And that's what I've been trying to do ever since I wrote my first book when I was 12 years old, and I didn't really understand my fears like a 12-year-old is not going to understand that. But try to exercise them and make horror has always been therapeutic for me.
Right. And I think we had discussed this on again, another panel where we just said, you know, facing demons and facing fear and facing horror, even if it ends badly, there's still that glimmer of hope. Like, even though we know everything's going to come out bad, and, you know, I use Game of Thrones as a reference, but even though we know that things turn out bad, there's that glimmer of hope that it makes us think. It makes us say, what would I do in that situation? And, you know, to yell about, don't make that choice. You know, it's always the, you know, the bitches be tripping is my thing, you know, like they run in there and they're hyper and they're, you know, whatever. And we always say, oh, if it was me, but we don't know how we would actually respond in that situation because we have that fight or flee mode, and we aren't trained. We aren't trained to, you know, most of us, I know some of us are in this group, but we aren't trained to stand our ground and to defend ourselves most of the time. And if you have not actually been in that situation, you never know how your body and how your mind is going to react together. So your mind may be saying like, yeah, you know, punch him in the throat, and your body's going like, I'm frozen, I can't do anything. So putting people in real life situations where they might have choices to make, but even if they're facing an unrealistic monster, demon, adversary, is, I guess, our way of, like you said, facing fears from our childhood. I mean, we start writing as we get more mature and experienced in it. We start writing exactly what we know in some way. So we know how to fear the boogeyman. We know how to fear the abuser. We know how to fear the bully, things like that. So we know those emotions really well. And as we grow as authors, then we learn to touch on things that maybe we have not personally experienced.
Yeah, because I think that as we get older, of course, our brains mature and we figure out more productive ways to deal with obstructions. And, you know, all supernatural creatures and inventions are usually symbolic of things that we're putting ourselves into the character's shoes and then trying to figure out what we would do. In a way, we're trying to figure out what would we do if that plane's going down. Well, let's explore that. How would we rescue people, or would we get high on the oxygen? Try to prepare ourselves for other situations, but there are so many situations in real life, like Jeff said, you can't get all of them, but that's why there's always going to be horror writers, and there's always going to be a wealth of material to draw from.
Right. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and let you mute, and we're going to move on to Miss Donnell. So Miss Donnell, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us what you write and why you write it.
Okay, I am Donnell Purdy Whiting, and I want to apologize for jumping late because I am a wife, and sometimes husband has to come first, and he works late. So I was scrambling around and then trying to come upstairs and hide out in the attic and explain to him why I have to hide out. But I write whatever comes to my mind. I agree with Jeff that people are, in the fact that people are afraid of the word horror. When they don't truly understand something, they would rather turn away from it. But I agree with Jeff that everything has a darkness. Without dark, there is no light. You have to allow that light out, or that darkness out, or it can consume you. So I write things as they come to me. My character in one of my stories is she's a piece of me. She's my darker self, the one that does lash out and is able to act on her anger. I like a lot of fantasy elements. I had a rich imagination growing up, a lot of fantasy. I didn't realize it was called fan fiction, but when I was a kid, I wrote a lot of fan fiction. I took Star Wars after I saw it, and I put myself in a story, and I wrote it, and it was just for me. I didn't share it with anybody because I didn't have the confidence. But being amongst the rest of you has really woken that back up, and my words are scrambling to get out. And unfortunately, being an editor as well, you know, sometimes other people's words have to come first.
So
but they're there, and they are clamoring to get out. I like to tell people I have a little Glen in my head, and in there is a cave where my dragon lives, my alter ego, my inner self, the one that comes out when I'm really pissy and spews fire. But I also have ducks and squirrels and a bunch of butterflies, and they are all fighting to escape that little glen. And
The
all those
menagerie.
squirrels and ducks and butterflies are my characters and they're my stories, and they want out of my head, but they're currently trapped.
So we call it
And
Donnell's Menagerie. Is that what we call it?
I say, hey, here we go. But that would be a good title. Dragon Menagerie. You have to remember that one. Oh, write that down. Somebody write that down on paper.
So when you first came to Stitch Smile Publications, tell me, like, I know that you didn't really read a whole lot of horror, if any at all. What was your first thought when you started coming in and reading some of the books that had to deal with a subject that you probably weren't exposed to a whole lot?
Oh, sweetie, whoever told you I didn't read a lot of horror? Oh, no. I've been reading Stephen King since I was like 12. And John Saul and Dean Koontz. And no, when I got hit high school, I outgrew the little girl books, the preteen girly books, like Black Beauty and The Black Stallion and all that. Oh, those all went out the window. I started reading Flowers in the Attic. Now, by my standards today, would I read it? Hell no. It does not, in my opinion, deserve the praise it gets. It's not horrible. It just does not deserve the praise it gets.
But I think for the time, it really opened up a doorway that people were just not ready for, and that's why it brought it to such accolades. Is that it was like, wow, we can't. Now we got Game of Thrones again. Reference Game of Thrones. Now they're all over that shit.
And you're right. When I came to Stitch, one of the things I always said is, I will read anything and everything except for romance.
Right.
Pure, unadulterated Harlequin romance novels.
Which, of course, is Jay's forte. So,
I love you, Jay. Been there, done that. Now, I'm going to contradict myself. Jay adds that darkness.
Mm-hmm. She doesn't write any sort of romance, so it's okay.
I was saying, if she did, she would have that darkness part. I'm talking about light and fluffy unicorn parts that are like, swoon. No, I don't swoon. I don't gush, and if I gush, it's honest. I don't swoon. But I will read anything. I will read anime, manga. I will read graphic novels. I read comic books as a kid. The thing that got me was that I started to see that there was more than the big ones. Stephen King, Johnson. There's so much. It wasn't the horror aspect that was new to me. It was this whole world just opened up. Because for a long time I kept thinking, I want to write a book. And I have the story with, a dragon is one of the main characters that Lisa, Jeff, and I have talked about. And Larissa, who isn't here, unfortunately, tear. But I kept getting stuck. And part of it was a confidence issue because you had these big, heavy hitters in publishing, and you had these big names in the big houses, and I'm like, I'm just this little bitty small fish in the big giant ocean of publishing. In comes Lisa with Stitch Smile, and a whole world just opened up, and I was like, oh, wow. Okay, so there are other ways to get your words out there.
Okay, so I'm gonna let you go on mute, and I'm gonna start. Let me put you on mute, and we're gonna go on to the next question. I'm gonna direct this one to Jay. What is one of the worst experiences you've encountered as an author, and then contra to that, what is one of the best experiences you've had as an author?
Oh my goodness. A lot of it's good. Most of it's good. But as you know, we do a lot of conventions and things. And I've had some bad experiences there with people who feel that if they buy a book, they also purchase you, which is unfortunate. But my worst experience was about 3 or 4 years ago when I was first got into the Horror Writers Association, finally. Some guy sent me an email, a really vile email, saying, I don't know why you won't take the time to get me into your publishing house, and can you talk to so and so with Netherworld Books and get me in. And I said, no, I don't. Like, I'm one of their authors. I don't do that. And he responded with an email that said, well, women can't write more. You're a joke. You don't know what you're doing. You must have sucked a lot of, to get where you're going. And it went on and on and on and on. And I'm like, oh my goodness, do I screenshot this and post this on Facebook? No, because he wants the attention. He wants that. So he offered to me at the bottom of the email, I still saved it because it's humorous. I was running an editing service at the time. And he said, to make up for your poor behavior as a writer, I will allow you to edit my manuscript for free. And so what I did is I typed up an invoice and I edited his email, which was really poorly written. And I sent it back to him and I'm like, well, here's your editing. You owe me $120 for editing this email. Thank you for your interest in Corvidae Literary Services. Have a nice one. And I never did hear from him again. But I do find that a lot, even at conventions, as people say, well, I like horror and I like Cabal and I like the Damnation Game and I want that visceral horror. Is there a dude around here? It's like, is there any male horror authors? It's like, I rip off dicks.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, I'm not sure what more you want, but it's more, and I do I write creature horror, but a lot of it is psychological. And in 99% of my creature horror, it's not the creature that's the monster, it's the human. So it's it's a very, I can write horror. I can write this twisted, uncomfortable horror. Best experience? People talking about my books or repeat buyers and coming back and really specific. Like, oh, I thought about this in my life when I read this part of Delivery, or I could relate to Etta in Chrysalis and Clan. And then buying subsequent books. It's not just you're selling a book for the money that you're getting in a con. They're actually taking something away from it. But the biggest compliment is writers coming and asking for advice. Like, I know what I'm doing. Like, it's like, well, show me the way. It's like, I don't know the way. Like, do I look like someone you should do this painting? But that's the highest compliment, I think. Absolutely. Other writers that want to come and collaborate.
Absolutely. And how do you deal with people, or have you dealt with people who said, will you mentor me?
I have done that. It's very informal. I mean, I will give advice, but my advice is also take my knowledge based on my experience. So I've had a very unique experience, as have you, as has everybody on this panel, and everybody in every writing community across the world. So take what I've experienced, catalog that, go to the next person, take what they've experienced. And as a critically thinking adult, take all of that, see what works for you, and choose your direction. Because it isn't going to work for everybody. Being Canadian, there's a lot of things that I do very differently in writing, and some things that I'm very stubborn on. You can't take my use away from me. You can't take my use away from me. And it's more of that's my voice. That's my thing. It was never an issue with my. It's my thing. So I never an issue with my publisher, of course, in the UK, but I have been published in anthologies here where their editor took the liberty of changing everything without telling me, and taking out actual words, like package in place of parcel and things like that. No. Like, at least run it by me. So, but I mean, that's a problem very unique to me, living here, not being from here. So I think everybody has their own experiences, and learn. You're always learning. You'll be 98 years old and you should still be learning. We're none of us professionals. Really, we're all always going to be amateurs, and that's part of the fun of it, right?
I think so. It's an experience. Yeah, definitely.
And I mean, I think the writing community is really strong, and that's beneficial to new writers because we're all supportive. This is not a physical contact sport. This is not competitive. I think that it's just really good, and it's been really supportive. And we see that at the conventions, how we all kind of come together and help sell each other's work and give each other pointers and critique groups. And it's a very chill community. So.
Most of the time.
most of the time.
So I want to ask you a question, because we're talking about experiences. Before I move on to you, Jessica, I want to talk about one experience, because I told Jeff, who was in his pissy pants today. Could you tell us a little bit about pissy pants?
Okay, let me tell you, this is PTSD. So Jess's knows. I see you there with your wine.
She's like, I need my glass of wine for this one.
So we were just Lisa and Jess and I were all at Pandemic. I don't know if none of the rest of you were in the area.
No.
And Jess and I went to stand in line to see Bruce Campbell because it's Bruce Campbell. And we were chatting, and of course Jess was ahead of me in line. We were together, but she was back. And so I got it first, and I'm like, I'm gonna be right back because I want to go see that. Like, you can hold our place in line. I'm gonna see that celebrity over there. I don't even know who it was. Like, I didn't even really know. So I walked away, and she's like, "That sounds good." And she turned around and just in her face. Okay, so there was a gentleman in front of us in a state of disrepair. We'll say, really, he was a really nice guy. You could taste the smell of urine on this man. Like, it was so bad. Like, I came up to talk to Jess again, and I'm like, I can't. Like, good job holding our place. I can't do it. I can't. Like, I know it's Bruce Campbell, but I got limits. So it was. I mean, there's colorful stuff. Frightmare 3 years ago. I had a table 3 or 4 years ago. A guy came up to me, wanted to have a full conversation about my second book, Delivery, in his underwear. Like, and I mean tidy, whitey. And had he been dressed appropriately, he was very cordial and very professional and very well spoken. But I'm like, I can't. I can't quit looking at your business right now.
Especially, and as tall as you are, because you're a very tall lady. And even sitting down at the table, you're like right there. I
was right there. Well, I mean, he was right there. And I mean, he wasn't right there, but it was there. And I mean, it's hard not to.
It's like, I mean, you just gotta grab it and be like, is this thing on? Because
it was so, we have a lot of really weird stuff happened to us. And I mean, Jess and I at Comic Palooza this year, this gentleman decided to show us, I don't know why he decided to show us. I mean, he came up and talked to us about his writing and his same kind of thing, the mentoring thing, and then started showing us on his phone how he was an artist and would create, I don't know if you'd call it dioramas, of Barbie doll pornography. And I mean, full on, like Barbie Ken masturbating on the bed and stuff. And I'm like, that's great. So in our infinite wisdom, the only thing that can come to my mind is like, you're very talented, but we're writers. You want makers. And then he walked away. Jess is like, that's where the children do crafts. I'm like, oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, no.
I sent it to the kids. So I'm sure it was fine. He actually came to Scary Dad's this past weekend to say hello.
Oh, wow. Was he fully clothed or? That was the other guy.
He was appropriate. He wasn't inappropriate either time. And he was actually dressed as Jesus at Scary.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. Okay, I remember seeing him.
So he's super friendly. He's everybody has their
porno
name.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Jess, let's move on to you. Tell us your worst experience and the best experience you've had as an author.
Well, worst experience, I was just kind of starting out, and I went to a workshop at, I think it was ApolloCon, that these sci-fi writers, writers on writers kind of workshop convention thing for the whole weekend. So I go to this workshop, and you had to submit your story ahead of time, and then you were grouped into a group with a professional or two, supposedly, and some other beginning writers. So I did all my stuff. I did my critique up. I show up, and this guy, he goes to give me my critique, and he's like, "Wow, yeah, no one's ever gonna want to read or publish anything you write." And I was like, "Whoa, that is not really helpful critiquing."
Well, even Jeff cringe right now. That was that's bad.
Yeah. It was really rude. It was really awful. And it's not what you want to say to somebody who's starting out. And I don't know that I was exactly starting out. And I got a fair amount of confidence, I guess, most of the time. Jay's probably shaking her head.
Yes, she is.
I can handle most situations like that because, I work in the real world. And I was really upset by that. I mean, I went out afterward and I was like, okay, well, thank you. You know, I don't really know what to do with that critique. It's not really helpful to me. And you might want to watch the way that you present ideas to people, because I immediately, you know, want to kill you. And he was just a douche. Like, he was just a complete douchebag. So anyway, that was the worst one, but it didn't make me stop writing. It actually pissed me off and made me keep going. So that was, maybe it was good, but, you know, you can really hurt somebody and make them not keep going if you act that way to getting people. Best experience, it's probably meeting all the people, you know, meeting everybody here, meeting the weirdo Canadian there. I don't know. It's that's probably the best part of it. And I hope more best is yet to come. It's pretty cool to have a novel out. I never thought I could do that, so that's pretty neat.
Awesome. So this is your first novel, right? And just so everybody can see, I was prepared.
Oh, look at that.
Yes, Jessica's first novel. I'm so excited. I am currently reading this. And I'm slow because I read 23 authors and mentors. So I've profusely apologized to Jessica, but I'm really enjoying it. So it's one of those books where I read for pleasure and I'm really having a good time with it. So congratulations on your first novel, because it's not easy. It is not easy at all. And I think that is probably one of the best experiences you'll ever have in your life, is just seeing that first novel in print in your hands. It's like the stork came and there's your baby. And now, you know, now it's all going to be destroyed.
What it's like, although I don't actually have a baby, so I can't.
Well, you have a fur baby, right? So
I have two.
There you go.
Someone's giving me the finger. Yeah, two. We have two babies.
All right, so we're going to go to Jeff. Best experience and worst experiences to offer. And we've got Jeff, who's got 30 years of experience. So I want to hear some good shit right now, Jeff.
I wouldn't say I have 30 years of experience. God, I feel old. No, the worst is actually very similar to Jessica's. When I first started writing, I submitted, and I got a rejection back that stated, and I'm going to quote, "You should never, ever write another story again. You are not good at it." End quote. That was like, you know, it was like one of the first 100 rejections I had gotten at that point, because I had not gotten published yet. Yeah, that was pretty harsh, and it kind of stung, and I got pissed off, and for a few days I had my pissy pants on, as you put it, and then I finally just said, screw it, I'm gonna prove this guy wrong. And that's actually been my entire motivation for getting published, was this guy saying you should never write another story again. The best, there's a few, but I'll say when I did my first reading, not this April, but April 2017, I read a story called Marion Wilson's Last Walk. And when I first started it, I was a little nervous. I'd never done it before. And then I just started blocking everybody out. And I started reading the story, and everything started getting really quiet, really quiet, really quiet. Then when I got done, I looked up, and everybody had stopped at this festival we were at, and they were all watching me. And then they started clapping, and I went back to my booth, and a woman walked up, and she had been crying.
Oh, wow.
Because of the story. Wow. So the fact that I had made, I know this sounds kind of sadistic, but the fact that I made a woman cry from reading one of my stories meant that I had actually done my job. And so that's one of the best. And I'll say this, for those who weren't at Scares That Care this past August, 2 months ago, that was one of the best times I've ever had in my life. Those 4 days, I met a lot of great people. We had a lot of great time. The image that you have on the fall release page of us all talking, that is like the image that will always stay in my head, because that was, we were having our it was a powwow. It was, you know, we're all talking about life and horror and writing and how it all fits together and how we all fit together. And it was just one of the best moments. And I say this, you know, if I'm alive 50 years from now, that's going to be one of those top 5 moments in my life.
Right.
Not just writing wise. And Kate and I have talked about it before, how that was a connecting night.
Yeah.
And I think we all connected in a very special, bonding way.
Exactly. Okay. So if you're not talking, can you mute yourself? Because I hear feedback. Perfect. Okay, Pete, go ahead and tell us your best and worst moment.
Worst moment happened when I was in high school, and I had just started to learn how to write short stories. And family member, who is a professional English teacher, I decided to share one of my stories with him. Back, you know, for some guidance. And not only did it take him months to actually read it, when he finally did, he threw it down on the table in front of me and said, just remember this word. Just remember this acronym. Yes. Keep it simple.
Stupid. Wow.
I kind of didn't hear the keep it simple part.
Yeah.
But I did. And I stopped writing for 10 years.
Oh, wow.
After, because this was someone in my life who I trusted, and I was still in that phase where I trying to figure out what I wanted to do, whether I wanted to do this and keep doing it. So I did music for 10 years. I was a singer-songwriter, and I didn't touch a typewriter or a computer for 10 years, and then I kind of slunk back to the writing because I felt like something was missing that entire time.
Right.
And I kept writing, and that leads me to my two. I have 2 best times, but they're short, so
That's okay.
I had a lot of self-doubt. Every time you sit right, and you wonder, is anybody ever going to see this? Besides my daughter. But you keep doing it because you hope and you pray that someday it will see the light of day. And I had a lot of long nights of soul. I'd give myself talks. I remember asking my wife repeatedly, why do I keep doing this? It may never amount to anything. And then I joined the Horror Writers Association. And I signed up for the mentorship. And this really, really kind lady, Lisa Vasquez, reached out to me through an email and said, your mentor. Told me the ins and outs of everything. And a year later, she had told me that she had talked with Jeff, and they thought about asking me to be a VIP author. And I remember when I got that instant message, I shed a tear.
Aww.
Real that finally my work was going to see the light of day. They weren't front books anymore. I took my family out to dinner and I celebrated that moment. It was a great moment. Fast forward to yesterday, I ran into my beta reader from my book that's coming out called Broken Birds, my debut novel. And she's been reading it. She's almost done, and she said, "You are one of my new favorite authors."
Yes, awesome.
It was really something special.
Yeah.
And book was beautiful. Now, when I think of that book, I certainly don't think of beautiful.
Beautiful in a very different way.
But it was a long road.
Yeah.
It was a long road, and I can say that you know, you always start by writing for yourself.
Right.
For other people. Always write for yourself. Write what moves you. Write what you want to read, what you want to find on the bookshelf. Leap and the net will appear.
Right.
That's my new motto. The net did appear for me, and that's why I'm now gathering a series of very good experiences as a result.
Awesome. Okay, we're going to move on to Donnell. And before I ask Donnell the question, I'm going to let you all know that before we end, I'm going to let you guys ask me a question, and I'll call you out one by one so we don't talk over each other. But I will call you out one by one. You guys can ask me a question since I've kind of put you all on the spotlight. And I know how much fun that is. So Donnell, tell me your worst and best experience as an author.
Oh, crap. Okay, well, I always start with the bad first because then you can end on a high note.
Right.
My worst experience has to be being on the receiving end of the editor's red pen. And I'm going to be honest. Love him dearly. Very good friend. Man, I know I could count on him when chips are down if I needed him. But, oh, man. Having my work shredded.
Mm-hmm.
But he doesn't do it with malice. He does it constructively with the goal of improving and building you up. It doesn't, it's almost like being in the Marines.
Yeah.
They got to tear you down to build you back up. And that's what Jeff does with me. And yeah, but it still sucks.
Yeah.
It hurts. But I think it also made me a better editor because it opened my eyes to some things differently. It gives the different perspective.
Right.
I have two bests. One is, and I'd like to say this is best, but in high school, my senior year, I took creative writing, and I had a teacher who signed my yearbook, and he said, "You will go far in life if you just take it seriously."
Nice. Yeah.
And it's okay, and that meant a lot to me. I've held on to that for years, and it kind of builds into this next one because the next super best thing is I am finally with my peeps, other than my husband and my son. You guys are the only people that get me. It's like you're the other half. I always tell Lisa and I consider each other soul flames because it's like she's that other half. It's different with my husband because it should be. He's my soulmate. Lisa's my soul flame. She's there for me, and Jeff is right there with her, and Pete. Oh my gosh, Pete! When we have our editors meetings, Pete's there. He's soaking it up. He's listening. He's learning. He asks questions, and it's just a wonderful feeling. And when I finally got to meet you guys, like Jeff said, at Scares of Care, it was just I felt like this flower that had been almost open, almost. Just need a little bit of more water and a little bit of Jeff's fertilizer. And lo and behold, it's like, whew. And it was just, it's truly wonderful knowing I finally found my group, my people. I mean, I always flitted around like a butterfly with all the other cliques and groups in high school, and the club, all the little groups that get together, but I never really truly belonged to any one of them. But now I belong, and it feels awesome.
It's like you said. Oops, that's really loud. Somebody's feedback. I'm sorry. Okay. Make sure you mute if you're not talking. We're going to blast out everybody's ears over here. So it's what you're saying is what every, I think, writer is looking for is that place where, like you said, people get you. And it's not easy to find that spot, especially if you write a certain type of horror or you have a certain type of personality. And today I wrote this blog about getting real and about issues that we have and how that affects us as a person. I mean, everybody here has a day job. We have teachers, we have, people work in an office, and it's like we look at the world a whole nother way. So, and most of the time it's who we're going to kill today. But, when we're looking at the world a different way, we don't relate the same way that other people do. So tell me, and I'm going to start, I'll start with Jeff this time. So tell me an experience you've had that's made the biggest impact on how you approach writing.
Well, that one's, I'll be honest with you, one sentence from On Writing is I think has had the biggest impact. And that's when Stephen King wrote, "The writer is the story's first reader.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, I realized everything I was doing wrong in writing.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the last sentence I've read wrong writing. I haven't finished reading it simply because that sentence was the sentence that opened my eyes. And that was in January of 2010.
Mm-hmm.
And I completely changed my entire outlook on writing, my entire philosophy on writing, my entire way of writing.
And did you feel like your readers responded a whole lot different when you did that? Like,
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Before that, and here's the crazy thing. Before that, I had tried to get some books published, some short stories published. I published a couple of. I contacted a couple of publishers, seeing if they do it. I contacted one, somebody I greatly respected, and I still respect to this day. In the email, I said, I basically was asking, hey, I'm so and so, and I'm trying to get some of my work out there. And, I didn't really understand exactly how to approach a publisher about publishing work, because what calls for submission. And he said, are you the person who wrote this, and this, and had this, and this? I said, yeah. Never heard back from him.
Ooh.
And that was before 2010.
Mm.
And right about, that was like right there at the end of 2009, and that's when I decided to read on writing.
Mm.
And that's when I was like, okay, I understand now. I understand why he said this, because I actually went back and read the stories that he mentioned in the email, and I was like,
yeah.
And after that, I had about a year later, another publisher approached me because I had really busted my butt. I put out a lot of work in 2010 or early 2011, and a publisher approached me and said, "Hey, we'd love to put out a book by you." So I would say absolutely, there's been a huge difference in response, not just from readers, but publishers and, people who, like, I've gotten emails, hey, can you submit to this anthology, stuff like that. Before that, nobody,
right.
And so, yeah, I've definitely seen a difference in how people view my work. The funny thing is, like, I was talking to a lady the other day, and it's actually one that you're mentoring, and you know what I'm talking about. But we were talking, and she said, because I told you that I really like the way she writes. I really like, because she reminds me a lot of me. And then she and I talked, and she said, "Wow, that means a lot, because everybody talks about you." And I was like, "Excuse me?"
Yeah.
Yeah. She goes, "Yeah, everybody always says these great things about you. So that means a lot coming from you." And that was a moment where, because, did you just say people talk about me? And in a good way? And so absolutely, I think that day in January, which was preceded by that email, changed the entire path of where I'm at today.
Awesome. Okay, we're going to move to, I'm going to go with Jessica this time. So Jessica, tell me about your worst nightmare, and did it inspire a story from you? If so, which story is it, and where can we find it?
My worst nightmare. Yeah, actually, I wrote this story, and it's in my collection, Dreadful Pennies. It is about waking up and your person isn't there. But when you close your eyes, your person's there, and it's not quite right. But then when you close your eyes again, they're gone. It's a weird story. And I wrote it, I woke up like at 1 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the morning, and I just started writing it. And I wrote straight through until I had to get up and go to work. And it turned out pretty good. So I've had a lot of Bordeaux wine, and I can't remember the story title right now. So it's in Dreadful Pennies.
Okay, so if you want to, let's do this. We'll make it a contest. We'll make it a contest. If somebody can post in comments on the Facebook SSP release party, in the comments, if you know what the story is.
I can't believe I don't remember the name of my own short story.
That's okay. We're going to make sure, we're going to have somebody post the title of that story, and if they can name it, they'll get a prize. And then tomorrow, after you've sobered up from your wine, then you can tell me if it's correct or not.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know where it's at in the book. I just can't remember the title.
Okay, Jess, we're going to go to Jay. What's one horror trope you hope to see put to bed for a little while, and what would you like to see more of?
I want to see more subtle horror, and we had just talked about this on panel this past weekend. It follows the Babadook, the Black Coat's daughter, things that are absolutely terrifying without heads being lopped off everywhere. And don't get me wrong, I do appreciate a good slasher story. I do appreciate, evisceration, all that kind of stuff. But the stuff that really gets in your head, there's a book that came out, oh gosh, I want to say it was about 3 years ago. Again, mine's Merlot. Yes. But it's by an author named Paul Tremblay. It's called A Head Full of Ghosts.
Yes.
And there's have you read that?
Yes.
Yes. I loved that. And it was disturbing. Nothing happens really. I mean, there's one questionable scene, I guess, if you want to call it feminine gore.
Yeah.
But other than that, there's nothing. It doesn't really. Nothing really happens, but psychologically, it's terrifying. In the end, is terrifying. Anya Alborn, who's an amazing author, she writes horror like that. That there's no, like Shirley Jackson, nothing really happens, but it's terrifying. It's just unsettling. It's not quite right, and there's this really gentle evil hiding beneath these innocent facades. So I want to see more of that. I don't want to see. No offense. No, I don't want to see much more zombie stuff where the focus is on humanity. The Walking Dead lost me after they moved away from the zombie stuff. And I like Jeffrey Dean Morgan. I like the character of Negan in the graphic novels. But it wasn't so much about survival and the virus and the zombies and getting to the root cause of that. It's just, why are we assholes to each other?
Right.
Because you know what? We are assholes to each other already. I'm not interested in reading about that.
Yeah.
Horror is a bit of a fantasy for me. So I'm also not a huge fan of torture porn, human to human horror like that. So it's, less of that, more of the more creatures, more tentacles.
And I think that's probably what I loved when I first discovered you and your writing. I remember last year, I walked past your table at Scary Dad's, and I kept seeing, this creature stuff on there, and I was like, one day I'm gonna get to read this. And I remember we didn't talk for a little while, and then we caught back up again, and I was just like, I need to get this book because I grew up on creatures, and I love just Frankensteining, different things together to come up with these, ideas that you're just like, how would we respond to that? What would we do with that? I mean, Creature from the Black Lagoon, and of course, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, and, things like that, where we just don't know what to do and how to react and how to fight these monsters. And like you said, it becomes the human issue of, this. Okay, so I'm gonna really lose my horror card here for a minute. I grew up on Godzilla, and I would go every Saturday with my dad to watch Godzilla since I was about 2 or 3. So I'd sit down with him every Saturday in the matinee in Chicago at Brighton Theater, and we would sit and watch, the Godzilla marathon. And the one thing that really got me, I would start to get a little teary-eyed because they were always trying to fucking kill Godzilla. And I'm like, this monster is being just drugged up out of the water. You guys are like, come save us, come save us. They're shooting at him, and then it's like, oh, he's saving us. And it's like, okay, let's shoot him back into the water until he dies. It's like, how horrible are humans? How horrible are they that they would just take this creature who's, this ancient whatever he is, and just, the reason why he exists is because they've polluted everything, number one, depending on which storyline you're at. And then, they drag him out of the water, and then they practically try to kill him because they're like, okay, we're done with you. Now what do? I don't know. Let's just kill him so he doesn't come back. It's like,
Yeah. Well,
so,
and that's the thing.
yeah.
And I mean, in a lot of my stories, I have these horrible, I was construed as a horrible creature in our ethno and egocentric selves, right? We think that we're the normal, and we think that that's it. We're the defining force of what's good and what's right. So I create these creatures that are gross to us. They're horrible, but they're not. And so their motivations become clear almost in every book. It's pretty formulaic. But it's always, well, you don't understand it. And the reason that you're terrified of it is you don't understand it. And the people in my stories don't become any less terrified by the end, but hopefully the readers are kind of evaluating, well, that thing that's naked with hanging body parts and skin slopping off, that's actually a decent thing. But that guy, he's an asshole. Like the regular guy wearing the chinos and the sunglasses on his head and the frosted tips. That's the guy we want to watch. Or
dressed as Jesus at a convention.
Right, exactly. You gotta watch out for Jesus, really.
Okay, so I'm going to move to Pete next. Pete, I would like you to tell me, do you have a formula that you use for your writing? And if so, what do you consider your formula?
My formula, I know that I guess writers are separated into two different types of writers. I the plotters and the plotters. That was a pantser. Did that for a long time, and I just got tired of ending up with stories that were misshapen trees that looked like they had been hit by nuclear fire when you're done. Get of it with a machete and fix this subplot, tweak this character, and I station that if you outline first, you weren't going to enjoy writing the story as much because there were no surprises.
Right.
Of the story and going, wow, that's really exciting that happened. Even if you outline, your story will still go in directions you're not sure you did not plan on. And your thing, the story almost takes on a life of its own, like a Leviathan. It takes you in a direction, even with an outline, that you didn't plan on.
Right.
I dropped the misconception that outlining is a crutch. I embraced it. And since I started outlining each novel, I mean, flexible outline, of course, if you write a rigid outline, you're writing yourself into a corner. But outline is not a crutch for people who need it, because people who need it, you come out with a much cleaner copy. And a lot less work to do.
Yes.
Editing is a lot more pleasurable than when you write the equivalent of that shriveled tree that's going in a million different directions. That takes the joy out of it. So I would say that outlining and embracing it has really helped me craft my stories in a much more solid and sound way.
Awesome. So. Okay, go ahead and mute yourself. I'm going to talk to Donnell for a little bit. Donnell, one of the funny things that we talk about is how editing has ruined your reading for pleasure. So, and I'm sure a lot of us can agree with that. Once we go through that, maybe at least one or two really in-depth editing process, whether you're the one being edited or you're helping to edit somebody else. I always say that when you teach somebody, learn. And we have teachers in here, so I'm sure they can relate to that on a very deep level. But for you as an editor, that you do this full time with SSP, and you're doing this all the time. You're learning constantly. You have to teach our editors, and you have to teach our authors certain things. When you go to read for pleasure, are the things that you first look at? So your 5 things. It would be 5 things that you are looking for when you pick up a book for your pleasure reading.
Oh, I gotta come up with a 5. Well, shit. Okay, this kind of goes along with, I think it was Desiree and her group, the mutated, oh my gosh, I'm not drinking and I can't remember the name of the group because I can't.
Is it Sanctum?
Do I know who do not finishers or not? And I kind of talked a little bit about that. The first thing that makes me decide if I'm going to pick up a book and read it, just for fun, grins and giggles, what the hell? I got a few minutes in the bathroom. the cover.
Mm-hmm.
I look at the cover. If the cover looks like my 5-year-old, or no, wait, my 5-year-old's pretty talented, so we're going to go to the 3-year-old. If the 3-year-old grandchild drew it, if the cover doesn't reach out and say hello, then I ain't picking it up. Second thing, and I think Jeff and I agree on this, but that may be his first, but it's the cover. Second thing would be I read the blurb.
Mm-hmm.
A well-written blurb will get you. It cannot reveal too much. The blurbs are meant to be teasers, not a synopsis, not a abridged version of the book. But in addition to how well is it written and is it tease and give you just enough that you start to get kind of curious, but also, is it properly edited?
Right.
If the blurb is written well, no, if you can't put the same kind of effort into a blurb that you supposedly put into your book, screw you. I ain't reading it. Third thing is, it's going to be the storyline, the characters. Are they flat? Are they dull? Do they grab my attention? Can I relate?
Mm-hmm.
Could I, and this is weird, it's the whole geeky fan fiction part of myself. Can I put myself into that story?
Mm-hmm.
If I cannot see myself as part of the story, ain't happening.
Right.
I mean, I have to be able to lose myself. I have to be able to become part of that world.
So do you think it has to have a level of believability, or is it just relatable?
Just relatable. Mm-hmm. Just like if I go to sleep, if I read a few pages and I go to sleep, am I going to have a dream where I'm part of that story? Mm-hmm. My brother accused me of thinking fiction movies like Star Wars and stuff were real life. Mm-hmm. Because I could describe them so vividly because I felt like I was a part of that story. Mm-hmm. To me, that's good. That was what, 3? 4. The editing. Mm-hmm. Actually, 4 and 5, the editing.
Yeah.
I mean, the writing and editing, they go hand in hand. I always, when Jeff turns something in to be edited, I always tell whoever's editor is, right now it's Larissa, that he's actually an easy edit because he self-edits. Mm. He goes through and he meticulously looks through it. Does he catch everything? No. Will he listen if you point it out to him? Yes. Jeff and I have had arguments about ellipses for almost a year before he finally saw the error of his way. and now he torments me with them just because he can, and it's just fun. But he notices those little things. Now, if you have a writer, and I have encountered a few, who basically think they're worth the next Pulitzer Prize or the next Bram Stoker. Well, no, they're not. And you try to talk to them and you try to tell them and they just don't want to listen. And they're like, nope, I know better than you. I am God's gift to writing. I am the next Stephen King. I am the next John Saul. I'm the next Neil Gaiman. No, you're not. Sorry, honey, but no.
Why? Because they listen to their editor.
Yeah, and I'm like, they listen to their editors. Exactly. They talk. There's a give and take. Mm-hmm. But it's like I cannot understand the fascination with 50 Shades of Grey. Yeah. I just can't. And it's not because of the material itself. It's because of the writing. Mm-hmm. The characters to me come off and unrealistic. The writing is sophomoric and mediocre. The editing, it's not subpar, but it could be better. It's not where it needs to be. It's like Twilight, same thing. It's like, why? I have started, and I commented on Desiree's thing, and I said, if I see a few mistakes, I can forgive.
Right.
Because I have accidentally let a few slip through. Mm-hmm. Because, misplaced commas, them little pernicious little pieces of punctuation are the bane of my existence. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you miss a spelling because a lot of people will auto-correct in their head as they go. And so I told her, I said, if there's more than that, and you're looking, and it's like, really? Did a 2-year-old edit this? Yeah. Really? Yeah. No, I can't. I have to stop. So like I said, 4 and 5, the writing and the editing, they go hand in hand. Without good writing and good editing, you got nothing. You can have great writing, but if there's a lot of spelling mistakes and punctuation mistakes and just a few little things here, like really descriptive, but the structure is, it's could have been better, then no. And then if you got crappy writing and crappy editing, guess what? You got a crappy book.
And I think what a lot of people don't understand, we as SSP, mute for a second. Sorry, it's okay. So we as SSP take a lot longer than your normal indie publishing house. And we go through several hands. What they don't understand is that, like you said, things are going to fall through the cracks because it's one person. You've read this over and over and over again. Whereas when you go into the big house publishing, the amount of time and effort that goes into editing is twice as much as what we go through. And yet, for some reason, indie authors are very impatient and they don't, it's like you've waited years to get your book published, and now you're so anxious to get it out there that you're willing to put it out there subpar just to have somebody validate your words. And, I think it's fantastic, the experience that they go through when they get those first couple good reviews, because yes, you have a fantastic story. But can you imagine if you had put that out properly edited and put all the time into it that we put into your book, that, you would have a much better response and be received as a professional. So for what I want to do right now is I want each one of you to tell me, and I'll call you off one by one, tell me what your advice is to someone who comes to you and says, I want to be a writer, or I just started writing and, I'm looking for a publisher, or I want to self-publish. What is your advice to them in this world? I'll start with Pete this time.
I'd say practice, practice, practice. Make sure that you're ready. Don't jump into it and say you think you're ready. Share your work with many, but people that you trust, of course, to be objective. Don't rush getting into print. Really learn it. It's a muscle that you have to exercise and practice.
Right.
And jump into it too soon. If you put work out there that is not ready to be seen, it's out there.
Right.
So make sure that you're ready and really take your time before you anyone and before you send your work out to anyone. Polish it.
Right.
Polish it and then more, because that's you that you're putting out there, and you want it to be the best you that it can be.
Right. And has being an editor for SSP, because you were just not that you were just a writer, but you were a writer before we came to SSP, and then we sort of snagged you into editing as well. And I mean, has that changed your writing style as well?
Oh yeah. I just learned how to use.
Wait, you cut out. You learned how to do what?
Well, yeah, of course. Being, learning from Donnell, learning from Jeff, learning from you what is expected, and how work is supposed to be, it's supposed to appear, and how it's supposed to flow, and the rhythm and the rules. It's a learning curve. Learned a lot of do's and don'ts, and I think that it's given me a much keener eye when I self-edit my own work. I mean, for a living, I teach other people how to write term papers and whatnot. But when you're dealing with your own work, you're very close to that, and learn how to look at it with an editor's eye and speak to professional editors. It can only help. It really can only help. Editors make you shine. They put the polish on you, and you got to trust that.
Right. Okay, Jay. Same question for you. What's your advice?
Oh, can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. I won't beat a dead horse. Yes, editing is crucial. And I know that I've read some self-published books that I did not finish because in the first chapter or two, I'm like, I can't. I can't. I'm like Donnell. I took a copy editing certification course, so ellipses bother me if they're used incorrectly.
Do you hear that, Jeff?
Like, you might as well stab me in the eye with it. But, aside from all that, the technical stuff, read.
Yeah.
And I tell people that if you think you are a writer, if you think you want to be an author, you need to be a reader. And you can't tell me I don't have time to read. Like even you guys said, well, I have 5 minutes. I'm in the bathroom. I'm sitting in the writer line at school. Yeah, and it doesn't matter. You don't have to read War and Peace. Like you just need to read, whether it's the work that you're editing, your own work, preferably work from different genres, different authors, just a variety. Read and read and read and read and read. And yes, we want to support indie authors. Also give the big five a read once in a while. See work and 20 different editors. It's just the more you read, the more you know. And you'll be able to recognize those issues in pacing, and tense is a big issue, and different point of views. You can't read enough.
Right.
And that the blurbs on Netflix, they don't count.
Oh,
they
yeah.
They don't.
I actually knew an author, and I'm not going to name names, but I actually knew an author that I started recognizing the books according to Netflix blurbs that I was seeing, and I was like,
yeah.
Are you kidding? Like,
you can't do that. You can't do that. That's not. And cereal boxes, good for you. Don't.
I haven't run across that. All right, Jessica, how about you? How about advice for new or young authors?
Write a lot every day if you can, more than once a day. Read everything you can possibly get your hands on, the stuff you really love. I took a class one time and they said, you learn by doing and imitating. So I think when you start out, there's nothing wrong with a little bit of, you sound like your favorite author. You're going to sound like your favorite author. I don't think that's a problem. You'll find your voice eventually. You just have to keep doing it. I also, I'm a big fan of beginning writers being in critique groups and feedback circles. I think that you learn more from reading other people's things and trying to find good things and things that they can do to make their work better, because then when you read your own, you can find those same things. So I'm a fan of that. I do think critique groups will outgrow them eventually, but you'll still have your trusted core people, who you let read your stuff, and I think that's important. So yeah, just write and read.
And drink wine.
Same thing. And drink a bunch of wine. And it's really hot in this apartment. Like, it's really hot in here. You're lucky I still got my clothes on.
That's funny that you say that, because I'm the same way. Like, if I drink, clothes come off, and that's why I am not imbibing with you guys tonight. I was like, you know what? I'll just be a little naughty with my M&Ms here. Okay.
In my defense.
Go ahead.
In my defense. Yeah. She's turning away from the camera. Anyway.
So, real quick, Jessica, what is the painting behind you? It looks like it's almost like a Dali painting. I'm not sure what's happening here.
It's actually a Wonder Woman comic cover.
I just see the leg, and it looks like a Salvador Dali painting. I'm like, who is this girl, and why does she have a Salvador Dali painting?
It's a Wonder Woman comic cover. It's a gigantic Wonder Woman comic cover.
That's awesome. Okay, Jeff, tell us your writing advice for new or inexperienced authors.
Oh man, I can be a jerk with this. I really can. Don't make excuses.
Nice.
Simply, just like Jay mentioned, you got 5 minutes to read. Take 5 minutes to read. Look, people say, I don't have time to write. Did you just watch 2 hours of television? There's your time. Did you just play video games for an hour and a half? Want to write, just like anything else. When you want it, you find time for it.
Right.
And the other thing, and this is something that I think you and I have talked about in the past as well. If you're going to be published, it's not a hobby.
Right.
It's a business. If you're going to put a book out, if you're going to try to get your name out there, treat it like a business. At the end of the day, if you're putting out books and you're not making money, but you're spending a lot of money, it's an expensive hobby. You have to want to do this. It's not a game. It's not something that you can just dabble in. I mean, if you want to just write for yourself and not put it out there, absolutely go for it, chase it, do what you want to do, have fun with it. But the moment you say, I want to put out a book, it becomes a business.
Mm-hmm.
You have to treat it that way. You have to be willing to market. You have to be willing to put yourself out there. You have to be willing to talk to people. You have to be willing to sell not just a book, but yourself.
Right.
Because you know, if you're at a convention, you know just as well as I do that people come up to the table and you're competing with 30 other authors.
Right.
You're not selling a book, you're selling yourself. You have to be willing to do that. It's not about, oh, well, I'm kind of an introvert. Absolutely. If you're an introvert, that's something when you're out there, it's hard to deal with. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't, and like I said, I can be a jerk on this subject, and I hate saying that, but to me, if your excuse is I don't have time, or if your excuse is, well, I don't know, I hate the words I can't, unless you have a disability, you can.
Right.
You know, I hear people say all the time, well, I can't do that. I'm like, did you try?
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, then you didn't. Then it's not I can't, I won't. There's a big difference. You know, and you and I, we've been talking about this for 3.5 years now, about the business of writing and publishing. It's, you know, and probably Jay, since she has a publishing company now as well, if you look at it like, you know, I'm just going to put a couple of books out and, you know, not have an idea of what you're going to do, not have an idea of how you're going to market it, you're not going to make any money, you're not going to sell any books, you're not going to get any readers. You have to actively pursue this, you know, and it takes a lot of time. You can't just expect tomorrow you'd be the next Stephen King, the next John Saul. And that's the other thing. I was asked a year or so ago, I was mentoring an individual, and I asked her, I said, what do you want out of this? And she said, I want you to make me the next Stephen King. And I said, if I knew how to do that, I would already do that myself. I said, I will help you become the first you. You know, it's all right to want to be like someone. I want to be the first A.J. Brown. Right. I want people to say, I want to be able to write like that dude. You know, be yourself, be true to yourself. Don't be somebody else. Like Jess said earlier, it's okay when you start out to emulate, you know, and because that's how you teach yourself. But eventually you got to find your own voice. Eventually you got to find who you are in writing. And, you know, you got to spread your wings. Don't be a cookie cutter author. Don't be everybody else. And, I mean, you need to read. You need to write every day. You need to do everything that Pete and Jay and Jess have said. You also need to be, you know who you are, know what you want, know how you're going to treat this, know if you want this to be a business, know if you want this to be a hobby, know where you want to go with it. It's important to have an idea. It don't have to be a concrete idea. It just has to be an idea.
Right.
You know, do I want 10 readers? Okay, that's your goal. I want 10 readers. Go get them. You know, do I want 10 reviews for my book? Go get them. You know, and it's hard to get reviews, but just have an idea. And you know, like I said, that's the one subject that you know I can abrasive on. You know, I go into Chris Nunez mode, and it's like, you know, I just be real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm all about the be real today. I think mute for just a second. So I think I related a lot to writing kung fu, right? Because remember Bruce Lee, he studied from different masters, and then he went and did his own thing, and he took what he needed from each one of his masters and his teachers, and he created his own thing. And he said, even in his philosophy of it, you have to be like water, right? and water flows and water changes and it adapts to what's around it. And that's how you have to be as an author. You have to be able to read somebody's work, and you can like the idea or you can like the style of it and emulate the style of it. But like when you're first starting out, as Jessica said, you're going to emulate somebody who you read a lot, because that in essence is your master or your teacher, right? So you're reading their work and it's inspiring you. So you're learning from that, and you take that and you emulate in a certain way. But then eventually you have to reach that level, you know? Or like, so we're going to go 80s for Jeff. You got to feel the glow, right? So, you know, when you start feeling the glow and you become your own master, then you have shown maturity in your writing, I think is how I feel. Donnell, go ahead and give us your advice.
Okay, I'm not going to beat that editing dead horse because we all know how I feel about it. But I am going to say it kind of goes hand in hand with that. Don't be a damn diva.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, yeah, you think you're the greatest thing since buttered toast. Fantastic. But the rest of the world might not think that.
Yeah.
Keep an ability to be humble and to be modest,
yes.
because somebody is going to find something wrong. Mm-hmm. Somebody is somewhere not gonna like you. Oh, God forbid. Mm-hmm. You know, oh, I'm not liked. Well, tough shit. That's life. People don't like some people and they love other people. You know, Jess says, don't try to be like, you know, the next Stephen King or the next John Saul or the next whoever. Be yourself. You know, and the reading and the writing and you know, don't. It's okay to have a little give and take with your editor. That's fine. Discussion, conversation. Be a damn adult. Mm-hmm. Don't put on. The only person that I know of who's allowed to wear a crown is Queen Elizabeth and you, Lisa. That's it. You know, don't put on the state robes and think you're Cersei Lannister. You're not. You are you. You know, keep it modest and humble. The day that you win the best, you know, all the awards you can win for your writing, and you've raked in millions of dollars, and you can buy a house and a car and a country home, and you can build a ball field for your neighborhood little league team, then you have the right to say, I'm a diva. Mm-hmm. Until then, you're an author, you're a writer, be modest, be humble, be kind, love each other. Right. And don't argue with your editor, converse with your editor.
Yeah.
Discuss. Be rational, be an adult.
As we say, don't fight it, just let it happen. Right? Oh, wait, that's prison. Sorry. Okay, so I'm going to turn it around on you guys and let you go ahead and answer ask me questions. We'll go ahead and start with Jessica this time.
Questions. Okay, well, what is next for Stitch Smile? What are you guys working on next?
World domination. Right?
That's a good answer.
Okay, so yeah, we are working on, actually, we started Stitch Smile Publications magazine, and it kind of went off the rails a little bit. And so we are deciding to change the direction in that. And I don't want to give too much away, but it basically is a little bit of kind of what we're doing right now. So it's going to be more about writing. Let's just put it that way. And I'm excited about that because it's a little ways in the future, but we're looking forward to, as we do with our authors, tear it down and build it back up. We have started doing a 2 times a year release, and that's really working out well for us. Everybody has started to really get into sync. We have really started to become a well-oiled machine, and I think I'm most proud of this year of what we've accomplished. So I'm excited to see what next year is, and I will be releasing probably in January exciting announcements for the coming year.
That's awesome. I look forward to it.
Thank you. Okay, Jake, go ahead.
I don't know how the internet's working. You can hear me now.
Yes, I can hear you now.
It says you can't hear me. My phone's a liar. So let's see your nails. Are we asking important questions, or
you can ask whatever you want?
Okay, you're doing the nail thing. Are
yes.
you wearing the nails right now?
I'm wearing my glow in the dark
I love it. That's
Yeah.
not actually my question. If you could go back and change anything, not as a publisher, but as a writer, what would you change if you would?
I would not have been so eager to put my book in print that I didn't wait it out patiently for a good editor. I would have waited for Donnell to come into my life and make the book unsaintly what it should have been all along. I would have waited for my mentor, Jeff, to come along and to push me to be the writer who I am now, for sure.
Nice. It's a two-part question. It's a quick,
Okay.
Any cautionary tales about who or what to look out for?
Yes. I always, even when a new author comes to me, I tell them, ask me questions. Ask me questions that you need to know. And if you don't know all the questions, you need to research before you get with. When I say you need to research before you get with a publisher, what I'm saying is that you need to search the internet on what the difference is between an indie publisher, self-publishing, and the big 5 are. What precautions you should take before you get involved with them. Because I find a lot of times when I have a conversation, and I do this a lot, where I will actually get on Skype because I'm old-fashioned and I like to see people and I like to talk to them one-on-one. I like to talk to them because you can see body language. You can tell in their voice what they're saying. Is it truthful? Ask so many questions, because if they don't have time to answer your questions, that's a first red flag. If they're talking around in circles, that's your second red flag. If they don't sound confident or seem like they know what they're talking about, or they don't have a plan, that's your third and final red flag to run the hell away. And of course, if they ask for money, then you need to run away. We are, as a company, we're young. We don't have all the answers, and I'm honest about that. I will tell them honestly, I don't have all the answers, but if I don't have an answer, I'll always seek from somebody else in this industry. And if you don't have a leader who's willing to do that and to put their ego aside, then you have to decide if you want to follow that leader.
Yeah. Nice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeff.
What is your infatuation with the words gasp and spine? I'm just kidding.
So-
I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Let's tell them the story behind this. He's going to mute for a second. Okay. So Jeff was my mentor and editor for one of my editors for The Unfleshed. And when I gave it to him as just sort of like, look, I wrote this thing. Can you read and just tell me if it's even worth it? And he started reading and he was like, I'm going to edit this. And I was like, oh shit. Like, like I'm not even done with that yet. And he was like, no, we're going to go through this. And I just, sometimes if I have a word that I don't have an alternate for, I just throw it in there and I'm like, it's a placeholder. It's fine. So gasp was in there about 75 times in the first chapter. And I write about a doctor. So I kept writing spine and he didn't get it. He was like, who says spine? And I'm like, let me just roll some people out for you. So yeah, we have an inside joke that if something is gasp, exciting, or the spine, that always comes up. Okay, Jeff, go ahead. What's your real question?
I couldn't help that. What I want to know is, I used to mentor a lot, and when I mentored, I would get a lot out of it. Get out of mentoring.
Okay. Yeah, there you go. So what I get out of mentoring is a lot of self-reflection. When I'm going over things, I notice, or I can relate to some of the things that they're going through, or some of the things that they've done, some of the same mistakes that I've made. And I'm a lot more conscious of that when I'm doing my own writing. The other thing I get is inspired. I really get inspired because I've run into some people that I've mentored, and I'm blown away. Number one, by their talent, but their intelligence, their wit, just a lot of things that they've brought to the table that I'm exposing myself to. Because like Donnell, I didn't have a lot of that up until I started Stitch Smile and getting into this group, I started talking to Pete when I was mentoring Pete, and it is a beautiful story, Pete. It is a beautiful story. I think I said that one of your characters reminds me of Charles Manson, and it was the most crystal clear. I just got this image in my head, and it was like perfect. Even though there was things that needed to be worked on, I was like, yes, this is so there, and it inspires me to be better, and it inspires me to be honest with myself and to really seek and dig in deep for myself. But most of all, it's the relationship that I build with my mentee, manatee, whatever. So it's the relationship that I build with them that that solidifies and validates why I'm in this. Because there are times where, I'll be honest, and I'm sure everybody here is at that point, gets to that point where like, screw it, I'm done with this. Why do I keep giving and I keep getting stepped on? Or why do I keep doing this and I don't seem to get the thanks, the honest, sincere thanks for it? Or why don't people see what I'm actually trying to do? And when I do this, it's like it solidifies why I'm here, why I'm doing this, and what my purpose is.
That's great. That's the way it should be.
Thank you. Donnell.
Okay, I always tell people you're not an editor. However, you do pick up on things. What is one thing that you, editing-wise, that you have learned since starting Stitched?
One thing. Don't piss off my editor. No. So one of the biggest things that I've learned is not to be a comma whore. I was the biggest comma whore. I would put commas because when I think, I pause. And when I pause, I comma. So there was commas just everywhere. And I think probably the other thing is critical thinking of plot holes. So when we're writing, we know what we are trying to say. And one of the big things was when I was working with Jeff is he would say, this doesn't make sense. I don't understand, or this is awkward. And I would start like kind of debating him a little bit. And I thought the light bulb just came on, and I said, well, if I have to explain it to him, then I'm going to have to explain it to other readers. And so I have to stop being so, I guess, defensive. And I don't think I was intending to be defensive. I had to start learning how to convey my thoughts properly. One of those was to say, this is what I'm trying to say. Will you help me say it correctly? Or will you help guide me to say it in a way that people get it? Rather than, well, yeah, it means this, don't you see? Because obviously he didn't, or he wouldn't be asking the question. And so then I learned to turn it around to do the same thing to my writers. And it actually has forged a really nice relationship with them because I'm really pulling out of them their voice. I'm really making them think about their work and really pulling out of them. And when you get that eureka moment when you're writing, I think it's like rapturous. You're just like, holy cow. Yeah, I get it now. And for me, I think that's probably the biggest learning point is to go line by line, right? But then also to see the big picture, because I used to be able to do either or. So I could read the whole book and go, well, that didn't make sense, and then go back to it. Or I, would skip over, going line by line, where now if I go line by line, I'm more critical about the structure of the sentences that come together to make the whole story. Okay, so we've kind of run over a little bit, and I know some people are on the other side of town or state or country. So what I want you guys to do is let's start with Jeff. Tell me where people can find you on the line, and any last words that you have.
Well, you can always find me at Amazon, or you can find me at my Twitter handle is AJBrown36. You can find me on Facebook. Blog is type AJ negative. Hit me up anytime.
Awesome. Okay. Jay, go ahead.
It's Jay. So anywhere, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, it's just Jay Mazer. and there really is only one of me out there, and I'm old, so that's simple for me to remember. It's just at J Mazur and Twitter. Is Instagram an at?
Yes.
I don't know. Okay, so it's also at J Mazur on Instagram. J Mazur author on Facebook. I also have the Feathered Tentacle, which is me trying to trick Facebook. So I have my author page, which is J Mazur author, and then the Feathered Tentacle, which is my group, because everybody sees the group stuff, but
yes,
the page stuff gets buried. So
exactly.
And I don't Snapchat. I don't know if that's something good to eat or what. I don't know what that is. So I don't do Snapchat. Yeah, but that's right. And jmazur.com is
Awesome.
my website.
Okay. And also for you guys, I was prepared. This is J Mazur's latest right here. So if you're watching this beautiful cover was given to her by me. Just kidding. No. So you can go and find this from J Mazur. And she has also donated some books for me to give away at the Stitch Smile Publications release party. Find us on the WordPress, stitchsmilepublications.wordpress.com for the link if you are not already part of it. Right? And Pete, go ahead. You can go next.
I have a website, www.petermolnarauthor.com, WordPress. I am on Facebook. I have a Twitter account, P. Molnar Author. That's my handle. I'm also on Instagram. Check out my blogs at petermolnarauthor.com. I try to get them up there pretty regularly. We talk about music. We talk about the state of music, the state of rock and roll, the state of the written word, the state of art, all mishmash of media fun. So come and check me out.
Awesome. All right. And finally, let's go to Jessica.
Usually at Denny's. So you can find me at Denny's.
Jessica at Denny's.
Denny's. All over Houston. I like to go to Denny's a lot because I Uber Eats Luby's. So I don't like to go out for Luby's, but I like to go out for Denny's. Facebook is like my main thing. I do Twitter too, so it's Jessica Rainey. I don't know. There's a number. I don't know these things. But there's only one of me. I can guarantee that. So you just look for me and come to Denny's.
Awesome.
I like Denny's.
Okay, and last but not least, Donnell.
If you don't see me out in town with my dogs, I am in front of my computer or out and about at a coffee shop near you, hopefully, maybe not. Anyway, virtual presence on Facebook. It's facebook.com/Pardee Whiting. I think there's only one of me. I'm hoping because I am unique. Try to be. Instagram @Pardee_author. Twitter @Pardee Times. There is a theme here. Pardee being my maiden name. My personal blog is pardeetime.com. It's been neglected, and I apologize. I'm working on that. You can find me on the Stitch Smile blog. Well, not lately, but yeah, work on that too. So many words. There are too many. And the Stitch Smile page. And Lisa's going to be helping me put together my personal website, which I will not reveal the name to you right now, but it is going to have a common element in it, my maiden name. So it'll be easy to find.
And obviously it's sought out because you had somebody try to steal not steal, but get your domain. So now it's even popular and yeah, awesome. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and close it up. Thank you guys for joining me. For those of you who are not able to watch this live, we're hoping that we did this correctly and it will be archived and on YouTube. We shall see here in just a bit. We thank you for joining us again, and please join into the party, the release party. Again, you can find that at our blog, which is stitchsmilepublications.wordpress.com. We can find Stitch Smile on Twitter. You can find all of us on Twitter and Instagram, and Jay doesn't eat Snapchat, so it's not there. But we do thank you all for coming, and have a good night.